Hey there, future nurses, it's Hank here, your guide to the amazing world of cells. Why should you care about cells? Well, they're the basic building blocks of all living things, including you and me. Understanding how cells work is like having a superpower. It lets you understand how the body functions and what happens when things go wrong. Think of your body like a giant, bustling city. Each cell is like a tiny house with a specific job to do. Some cells are like construction workers, building and repairing tissues. Others are like delivery drivers, transporting nutrients and oxygen. And some are like the garbage collectors, getting rid of waste. All these different cells need to work together in harmony to keep the city running smoothly. If one type of cell starts to slack off or malfunction, the whole city, your body, can be affected. That's why it's so important for nurses to understand how cells work. So, buckle up, because we're about to dive into the fascinating world of cell function. We'll explore how cells transport substances, produce energy, and maintain life itself. By the end of this journey, you'll be well on your way to becoming a cell superhero. Now let's talk about how things get in and out of cells. Every cell is surrounded by a thin membrane called the cell membrane. This membrane is like a gatekeeper, controlling what enters and exits the cell. There are two main ways that substances can cross the cell membrane: passive transport and active transport. Think of passive transport like floating down a lazy river. It doesn't require any energy from the cell. Active transport, on the other hand, is like paddling upstream. It requires the cell to expend energy. We'll explore each of these transport methods in more detail in the following sections. Remember, understanding how cells transport substances is crucial for nurses because many diseases and treatments involve disruptions or manipulations of these processes. So let's dive deeper into the world of cell transport and see how these tiny but mighty processes keep our bodies functioning. First up, let's explore the world of passive transport. Imagine a crowded room with people moving around randomly. Some people might move from a crowded area to a less crowded area, just by chance. That's kind of like passive transport. Molecules move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration, without any energy input from the cell. There are a few different types of passive transport, but they all follow this same basic principle: diffusion. This is the simplest type of passive transport. Think of spraying air freshener in a room. The scent molecules will diffuse or spread out from the area of high concentration, where you sprayed it, to the area of low concentration, the rest of the room. Osmosis. This is a special type of diffusion that involves water molecules moving across a semi-permeable membrane. Water will always move from an area of high water concentration to an area of low water concentration. Imagine putting a wilted plant in a vase of water. The water moves into the plant cells through osmosis, plumping them up. Facilitated diffusion. This type of passive transport involves proteins in the cell membrane acting as helpers to move larger or charged molecules across. Think of it like a revolving door. It allows molecules to pass through the membrane more easily, but it doesn't require the cell to expend energy. Filtration. This process uses pressure to force water and small molecules through a membrane. Think of it like a coffee filter. It separates the coffee grounds, larger molecules, from the liquid coffee, smaller molecules. Passive transport is essential for many important processes in the body, like the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the lungs, and the absorption of nutrients in the small intestine. Pretty cool, right? Now let's switch gears and talk about active transport. Remember that lazy river we talked about earlier? Well, active transport is more like paddling upstream. It requires the cell to expend energy to move molecules against their concentration gradient from an area of low concentration to an area of high concentration. Think of it like trying to push a boulder uphill. It takes a lot of effort. Cells use a molecule called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, as their energy currency to power active transport. There are two main types of active transport pumps. These are proteins in the cell membrane that act like tiny pumps, using ATP to move molecules across the membrane. One example is the sodium-potassium pump, which pumps sodium ions out of the cell and potassium ions into the cell. This pump is essential for nerve impulse transmission and muscle contraction. Vesicle transport. This type of active transport involves the cell membrane engulfing substances and transporting them in small sacs called vesicles. Endocytosis is like the cell eating substances by engulfing them in a vesicle. Think of a white blood cell engulfing a bacterium. Exocytosis is the reverse process where a vesicle fuses with the cell membrane and releases its contents outside the cell. Think of nerve cells releasing neurotransmitters to communicate with each other. Active transport is crucial for maintaining the proper balance of ions and molecules inside and outside the cell. It's also involved in important processes like nutrient absorption in the intestines and waste removal in the kidneys. So even though it requires energy, active transport is worth it. It's essential for keeping our cells and our bodies functioning properly.